Okay, well, good afternoon. I guess you can hear us on the back as well. Hope so. I'm here, I'm Jérôme, I'm here with Isabelle, and we are very pleased to be here to discuss about the opportunity of using a civilian technology, 5G, but I guess you all know, in a military context. So this is the kind of question we are going to try to answer by the end of this speech, and of course we'll welcome any questions on that one. So three, let's say, sections around that. First one is we'll go into what is 5G in a nutshell, to try to explain why 5G can be interesting for military people. Then we will zoom into potential use cases where we can use 5G in a military context, and we will touch upon what are the associated challenges that would be faced with using 5G in those different situations. Might be that in some cases 5G is not appropriate, maybe in some it is. And what are the solutions that us as THALES can actually bring to solve some of those challenges. And then indeed some final takeaways. And as I said, I will share this presentation with Isabelle. So to start with, what is 5G about? 5G, as you know, is the new generation of the cellular communication you have in your pocket. So it's for you and me in our daily life, I would say. And the idea is, as usual, to bring you more capacity, more speed, to enjoy more application on the internet or on your favorite apps, to actually prepare yourself, to immerse yourself in the promised metaverse from the nice GAFA companies. But from an operator perspective, this is also a very interesting technology to be an alternative for fiber deployment. And in 5G, because it's really high speed, there are already quite a lot of deployment where they are using 5G for fixed wireless access, so to replace the fiber going to your home. So I read yesterday it was like more than 100 operators around the world that did provide this kind of stuff. But more importantly, for what we are concerned here, 5G has been designed from day one to actually serve the so-called vertical markets. Vertical markets could be industry, transportation, logistic, e-health, public safety, automotive, whatever type of application you might think of, not being mass market type of it. And this is very important for the rest of the presentation, because as I said, from day one, 5G has been designed to serve both the mass market, but also the verticals, with all the constraints that comes for the verticals. You can imagine that an industry or automotive have really different types of constraints. And this has been, I would say, designed to work either on a public network, so from your favorite operators, or from a private network infrastructure, or a mix of those. And this is very key for the rest of the presentation. So indeed, to realize this, so 5G is, I would say, aiming at providing, excellent performances. In terms of throughput, it goes, to gigabit per second, but it provides ultra-low latency capacities that could be very interesting for some applications, and the capacity to connect a lot of objects. And how it is possible is because 5G is actually a revolution in the way you are building networks. Indeed, there are a lot of enhancements on the radio. The radio is basically programmable. It's become more and more software-based. It has very nice features for, I would say, exploiting the space with so-called massive MIMO. It has new spectrum ranges. Some of this spectrum is actually based on frequency that are, I would say, military compatible. So some of the NATO bands actually are 5G bands where you have an ecosystem there. But I would say the major revolution is in the networking side. I mean, we moved from something that was really monolithic and centralized to something that is fully cloud-based, fully virtualized, fully programmable. And with all those programmability, you can actually do the so-called slices that are, I mean, quite popular if you know a bit of 5G, which is that you are able, on demand, to actually create services end-to-end with differentiated quality of service, differentiated performance, differentiated security. And all the networks are going to be like this in the next decades. So this is very important aspect to also have in mind. I mean, 5G, indeed, it's a lot of performances, but it's also programmability at stake. So this is why, I mean, that a number of military organizations are actually looking, I mean, really seriously at, 5G and what we can do with 5G. Here you have, a number of flags that you can recognize. Indeed, the US, I mean, was the one, really putting a lot of efforts on 5G. I mean, they started with putting $600 million to make a few experiments, but, real one. NATO, I mean, I see some colleagues here where we are working on 5G for NATO operations. Europe also put 5G at the agenda of the last call for the European Defence Fund. And many other countries, I mean, are starting to look at 5G. Now that we have this, so let's start to explore what could be, I would say, use cases of 5G. Indeed, to start with, I mean, 5G potentially can be of interest for any different, I would say, command level, from the homeland to the battlefront. And 5G could address different domains. I mean, the land, the navy, eventually the air domain. What is for sure, and as THALES we are very much aware of that, is that it's good to use civil technology, but indeed, when you use civil technology in a military context, there is a bit of adaptation to provide. So at the strategic level, I mean, you are homeland, okay? So using commercial off-the-shelf technology that where you improve a bit the security, improve a bit the resiliency might be okay. But when you start to go, I mean, on the field for an expeditionary mission, I mean, it's a very different type ball game. So here, I mean, you have, size, weight, and power constraints that are really hard. You have the environment that is usually not your best friends. You have to integrate this with many other communication systems, and this is not a piece of cake. And you have to provide tools that make this technology easy to deploy. I mean, today, if I look at, how to deploy this from a commercial or from an operator point of view, I mean, you really need to have a real expert to manage indeed the complexity of 5G, but also the complexity of the underlying cloud layer that I was mentioning to you before. And indeed, the more you go to the front line, I mean, the more constraints you have. And in the front line, one of the constraints, and Isabel will come back on that later, is the electronic warfare that is to be ferocious there. And okay, that will eventually provide, I would say, harm to 5G. So let's say pick some examples and go through, let's say, the benefit that it could bring from an operational perspective to the defense organization. Let's take a few, I would say, major challenges and potential solutions that we can bring. So the first case is, I would say, operation. Homeland operations in the context of continuum between defense and security teams. So, for instance, to manage big events or to manage big crises like terrorist attacks. So today, in some cases, military, I would say, troops are involved in those operations. So usually they have, their own radio, which is capable of doing voice. They are very siloed. So if they want to speak to another organization, they need another radio. So here, 5G is an opportunity to actually simplify the way those operations are going to happen and to improve the coordination between the different organizations that may be involved in this type of situation. So with 5G, indeed, you can move from voice only to collaborative application based on exchanging indeed voice, which is really key, data, video, to have a better understanding of the situation. You go from specialized technologies to more standard-based technology. And by using standard-based technology, you move from a siloed approach to something that is natively interoperable. I'm not saying that you have to connect everyone to everything every time, but for some situation, having solutions that are based on standards, really enable the connectivity between those different agencies when it is needed. Indeed, here we are on let's say, a national territory. So the thing will be to have a service nationwide with high level of availability, because we speak about mission critical system. Another issue is about having a security that is in line with the requirements. And the last point is that indeed we all know that cellular coverage is not perfect. There are still white zones, gray zones. You may think about parking lots, underground. So for all those kind of challenges, we think that in Thales we have, we can help you with some solutions we have been developing. So for the high availability, one of the key things is to be able to actually use whatever coverage is available and use the best one. So we have the skills and we have the tools to actually enable that. In terms of security, indeed, in Thales we are very well known by our cyber approach. So we have solution to actually harden the security for the end-to-end communication up to restricted level. And for the out-of-service coverage, we have a solution where we have integrated with smartphone, let's say a radio mode, but transparently switch to the radio mode to have kind of direct mode in areas where you don't have coverage. If you are interested in that, you are welcome to come and see us on the booth, and you will see that in details. Another use case is, and the rest of the use cases are more for the expeditionary operations, is to have a 5G enabled deployed command post. So today, when you are in operation, so here I'm more at the entry of a theater, I'm more at the division or brigade level. At this level, one of the issues is the speed of deployment. Okay, so today there are a lot of cables, a lot of fiber to actually connect all the different, let's say, operational functions that are in this command post. So using 5G and the speed of 5G would actually replace the wires by instant wireless connectivity. So it will again increase the speed. By having 5G there, it's also an opportunity, I mentioned about slices before, to have different types of services and application on the same infrastructure, on the same 5G infrastructure. So you could imagine that one of the applications would be to have the same services that I was mentioning to you before for the theater, the homeland security scenario, but on a reduced scale for the command post. So you would have the same services for the people in charge of the security of a command post, eventually helped by robots that could do identifications of vehicles, objects that are around the command post before they are allowed to come in. Another thing would be to actually, let's say, enjoy the capacity to have command and control application on the smartphone. So while you are on the move, so you might not be, forced to be in front of your PC under your tent. The guy before was presenting tents, which is very nice, but it's also cool to get, the applications while you are on the move on the command post area. So this is something that is possible. And the last one, and this is something that might be also, let's say, subject to debates and standardization. Since 5G is standard technology, you might also have a slice that might be dedicated to host coalition forces on your command post, as an easy way to get them connected to your system. So here indeed, here we picked some challenges. One of the challenges, again, is there you don't have, expert in telecoms, so you need to have something which is very simple. And one of something which is a pain in the, today in 4G type of bubbles that are there, or 5G tomorrow, is to manage the rights for the end users and to manage the secrets for them. Actually, we have a solution for that, which is actually based on there is no need for provisioning for end user. I mean, we have I would say kind of tips to just identify who are the, let's say, the authorized users to come in without actually provisioning them. Security is something we mentioned before. I mean, same type of solution, and then interworking with other systems, which is really key in this type of scenario. Indeed, we have a lot of solutions to mix and match different types of technologies. Indeed, respecting as much as possible the NATO standards for interoperability. So we see that in those land, let's say, examples, 5G are of interest. So Isabel, can you tell us what about Navy?
Yes. So the next use case that I will present is about Navy application. So it's for onboard communication. So you need to have onboard communication. They need to have, at the moment, they have voice for the security on board ships. And they need to have multimedia services. And so 5G is a good solution in order to allow them to have broadband services with smartphones and for security usage on board ships. What is also important for Navy is to have the same interface for fixed services, because they have different usage for fixed services, and to have the same application and the same services on their smartphones and on the mobile application. And so this is something that is very important for this application. And with that, they want to enhance their digital experience, and what is important also is to have high throughput and low latency for the different services and for the security on board ships. So what are the challenges? As Jerome said before, we had the same kind of challenges for Navy applications. Of course, we need to have high availability. Whatever is going on the 5G network, we need to have this high availability. We need also to add security, and also it's very important to have interworking with other systems, and especially the fixed system that they have on board. So what is the THALES solution for that? For the high availability, we have also the management of different groups, and we are able to have different slices for different services. And also for this high availability, we have, as Jerome said before, for the other use cases, we have an integrated direct mode, allowing you, even if you lose the 5G network, to still have a communication. Also, security is an important topic, and so here also we have a restricted level. And also, our solution is a sovereign solution, so with this security. So we were on ships, and we will go back on the land. And so here we will be more on a tactical level. And so for this level, really the question is 5G suitable for this kind of use case? Can we have 5G on the front line? Of course, 5G will have some gains, and you will have broadband services for dismounted soldiers, so they will be able to have new services. You can have connectivity to drones, to different kind of robots, etc. You will have also low latency, allowing you to have a lot of sensors for protection, but you have a lot of challenges, and more you are in the front line, more and more you have challenges. Of course, one of the challenge is about jamming. So jamming when you are in the front line is something very important. Also, we all know that at the moment a 5G network is a centralized network. So you have a single point of failure, which is the base station. You need also to have a silent mode. So really, we think in THALES that more and more you are going to the front line, and 5G is, as it is now, as it is for this definition, is not suitable for the combat. But you have a dedicated radio. So of course for the frontline combat you have dedicated radio, and both worlds, dedicated radio and 5G, they are complementing each other for different use cases, and 5G has really a lot of benefits to complement this kind of radios in a benign environment when the electronic warfare is less. So as a conclusion, in a low intensity combat, when the electronic warfare is less, of course, 5G will provide you a lot of new services and a lot of assets. You will be able to have broadband services, you will be able to connect a lot of IoTs, you will be able to connect drones. Very important also, you will be able to have a fast deployment for command post. Instead of deploying optical fibers, you will be able to have broadband services and to really deploy a very fast command post. You will have a lot of services. You will be able to have coalition forces also on the same zone, because you are on a standardized solution. But in high intensity, really, when you have in high intensity combat with intensive electronic warfare, you still need to keep the military radio with the dedicated waveforms, combat radios and SATCOM radios also. And so Thales has this expertise in both worlds, the military radios and also the civilian radios like 5G. We have this dual expertise, and we are able to deliver for different networks and systems robust 5G and also military radios. And so depending on your mission, depending on your use case, we can offer both solutions. I thank you very much.
So thank you very much for your attention, and indeed we have, I guess, 5 minutes, so if you have any questions, would be welcome. Any question from the audience? Or comments or remark? There is a mic there, or I can eventually...
Okay, hello, my name is Kaspers. I'm from Latvian company LMT. We are cooperating with Thales in several studies on the 5G. I really enjoy these statements, and what is clear, I think, is that the 5G will not be the miracle which comes and solves the military communication and electronic warfare issues, but just bringing in a bit different angle, maybe from the experience of what we see in Ukraine, and taking into account that 5G is much more mobile network technology neither than military communication technology. The electronic warfare always consists of two parts, where one is detection and the other part is the offensive actions, like jamming, for example. So just one of the angles, as for example 5G could be used in the urban environment, for example, is or when the combat is in the build-up areas with the civilian population, the 5G could actually mask the communications better than the combat radios, and the detection part can be much more complicated for the opposing force. Yeah, just a comment, and it's a pleasure to see you here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to see you again, Kaspars. Indeed, it's a very valid comment. I mean, as we said, I mean, here we just gave a glimpse of examples, but as you said, I mean, when you are in your home country, I mean, using cellular network might be a way to hide yourself from the enemy. So, indeed, if you are outside, I mean, then it will show off yourself. But if you are in your home country, it's a way to hide yourself. So thanks for the comment.
Yes, I totally agree that the expeditionary warfare is a completely different story.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Yes?
My name is Taufik, consultant 4G, 5G. Do you already have available one packaged 5G solution because as far as I know, 3GPP specification is not yet, let's say, closed, freezed, whatever.
So 3GPP specification will never be frozen.
I understand that.
Unfortunately for the military people, I mean that really needs to have some. So, I mean 5G, as we explained before, it's a revolution in the way the technology has been built. I mean basically it's fully programmable until the radio. I mean unless the power amplifier and the antenna, the rest is basically something that you can program, which is something very unique today. So the good thing with 5G is that from the beginning you could eventually, because it's all software based, you can build small, big, medium, whatever type of solution, which was not the case before. I mean now 4G it's also very much software based, but at the beginning of 4G it was very much hardware specific type of system, and it was not possible to make it very small, for instance to insert it into a combat vehicle. Now today you can put pieces of 5G software on a small server, and this is what Isabelle is doing.
Yes, this is what I am doing.
And that can fit into different types of environment. Indeed, as you said, the specifications, they are, it's a living process. So today there are, a number of features that are already available. The slicing, it's something that starts to mature. The next step, and this is also something I didn't mention, but in which Thales is very much involved, is to actually bring a satellite component to the access that will bring, let's say, an extra solution to provide you kind of ubiquitous coverage, even though a situation where there is no cellular network. So you have to see 5G as a kind of toolbox that today you can already use, and for different types of application that you have there. And you need to have in mind that there will be evolution of this, and you need to think about what it could be used for, and what will be the, let's say, difficulty or the complexity to add those different features. But in the end, all those features will solve you in some of the challenges we mentioned before. So it's moving in the right direction, because 5G takes, as I said before, all the constraints of vertical domains, which are very particular, and which are very interesting for defense. So I think we are at the end as far as I saw. So again, thank you very much for your attention, for the question. And if you want to continue the discussion, we are on the Thales booth